Okay, so the topic is writing the equation of a parabola with a given focus and directrix. So this journal entry goes with the second assignment in the packet. It's very similar to the problems that we just went over. So the problems that we just talked about, we had the focus and the vertex were given, or did they give us any with the directrix and the vertex? Nope, they were all either focus and vertex or focus and directrix, okay? This entire second assignment is giving you the focus and the directrix, okay? And we're trying to write the equation of the parabola. So let's just review really quickly. We have two different standard forms for equations of parabolas. What's the first one? X dominant and Y dominant. So what is the standard form for an X dominant parabola?
X minus h squared equals 4p y.
Good. X minus h all squared equals 4p y minus k. And we're saying it's X dominant because the X variable will have the highest power. And we're saying, like, the analogy is the person with the most power is kind of in charge, right? So what's Y dominant look like? Good. Y minus k all squared equals 4p quantity x minus h. Okay? So if it's X dominant and we have a vertex of HK, same with this one, HK. Being really careful with this one because the H coordinate comes from the X variable, the K coordinate comes from the Y variable. And we remember insiders lie. So our focus, if I'm an X dominant parabola, the Y's are doing the work. So the H stays as it is. How do I get my focus? K plus P. And for a Y dominant, the Y stays the same and the X's change. H plus P, comma K. And the directrix, these are ordered pairs. The directrix is a what? It's a line, and it's either going to be a horizontal line or a vertical line. So if I'm X dominant, it's either going to be concave up or concave down, smiley or frowny. Y dominant is going to open to the left or to the right. So if I'm talking directrix, what kind of line does an X dominant parabola have? Is it horizontal or vertical? It's horizontal, and horizontal lines go through which axis? Y. So this is Y equals something. What is it? Y equals, it's going to be K minus P. And the directrix for a Y dominant, if you look at the directrix, what kind of line is that going to be? A vertical line, which is an X equals something, and it will be HP. So none of this is new. This is what we talked about last time. So with this, things that you have to remember, something that will be very helpful, is to know that if you have your vertex, your focus is inside the bowl and the directrix is outside. And these are each a length of what? So this is a length P, and this is a length P. So what is the total distance between focus and directrix? 2P. So this will be 2P. Does that make sense? And is that going to be true for any direction that our parabola is opening, or for up, down, left, or right? Will that still be a 2P? Yeah. And remember, P, we're looking at it kind of in two different ways. This is more like the absolute value of P because it's a length, and length cannot be negative. So when we refer to P that we're plugging into here, we have to consider the direction. So if it opens up or right, P is what? P is positive. If it opens down or left, P is negative. Okay, so when you're finding the distance, the length, it's always going to be positive, and then you have to decide, is this going to be a positive value or a negative value, and that indicates the direction of your parabola. Okay, are you guys with me okay?
Yeah.
Any questions so far? Okay, so let's do some examples. All right, so on your examples page, let's find the equation of the parabola given the focus. Let's start with 0, -3, and a directrix of y equals 7. What's the first question you ask yourself? X dominant or y dominant? Who's doing the work here? It's a y equals, right? And if you look at this, which form has a y equals for its directrix? An x dominant. So this tells me if I have a horizontal line that this thing has to be x dominant. So this is x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k. So there's several different ways that we could go about this. We could think about it, like do a sketch and think about it graphically. We could think about which coordinate's changing and find the length of P. Which way do you guys want to try it first? What should we do? Okay, so let's look at a graph. So if I were to sketch the information that I have, make sure that you go the right way. This is x is 0 and y is -3. What does that point represent?
Focus.
That's my focus. My directrix is all the way up here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My directrix is at y equals 7. Where is the focus in relationship to the parabola? Inside the bowl, right? So which direction would my parabola have to face for this directrix to be outside of the bowl and this to be inside the bowl? It'd have to face down. So what do you know your sign is going to have to be for P? It's going to have to be negative. So we know that. Now, I don't even really have to draw much else here. I just need to know how far apart this line and this point are from each other. So how far apart am I from 7 to -3? What's my length? So that's a length of 10. What does this length represent? That's 2p. So what does p equal for this parabola? 5, and that's the distance. We also have to include direction. So what direction does this parabola open? down, so P has to be negative. So I know P is a -5 for the direction. So I have this so far, 4 times -5, I have that's a -20. What else do I need to fill in to get this equation? I need the vertex. So we can use formulas if we want, like do little equations, right? Or we can think about what's changing. If this is x dominant, what has to change from this ordered pair, the x or the y? The y. So is the x going to be any different from my focus to my vertex?
Nope.
No, so my x is 0. I just need to figure out what k is. How can I do that?
Well, you subtract 5 from 7.
Yeah, so you can just count down 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's that going to land on? 2. So that's 0, 2. Or you can just subtract 5 from 7. Or I can add 5 to -3. So we're really just trying to get halfway between there, right? And we get our graph. So, and we're not really trying to graph, that was just a helper. So then my h is 0 and my k is 2, so that's y minus 2. So that simplifies to 8x squared equals -20 quantity y minus 2. Who's with me? Is this making sense? So could you make some sort of like little equation? Because what if it's fractional or decimal, right? And maybe you can't count it very well. Like how would I make some sort of an equation here? If I know, if I do 7 minus, so my distance is 7 minus a -3. That gets me 10. So we cut that in half to get P, which gives me 5. So if maybe you had like some sort of a decimal or a fraction, how could you get your vertex knowing your focus is this and this is the value of P? Look at what stays the same. The x's aren't changing. So all I have to do is modify the y. So from the focus, if you're talking from the focus, I have to do what to get up to this vertex? So I have -3. I'm just adding that 5. Because I'm moving up to that vertex. So that gives me 2. Or you could go from the vertex, or excuse me, from the directrix. Your directrix is 7. I have to move down to get to my vertex. So what would I be doing? Subtract 5, which is also 2. Doing right there. You guys with me? Okay, let's try another one. Let's do a focus of 3, 3 and a directrix of y equals 7. Who's in charge here? It's x dominant. How do you know? Y is having to do the work. So what's my standard form? Do I really need to draw a picture? I mean, it's helpful, right? And does it take very long? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, boom. And that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's my focus. That's my directrix. How far am I from focus to directrix? What's the distance? So that's a length of 4. Is that P? That's 2P is 4. So what is P? P is 2. question?
Wouldn't 2 be, or wouldn't P be -2?
So the question is, wouldn't P be -2? So if this is my focus and that's my directrix, then it's gonna, my vertex is gonna have to be here. So this is going to have to, when we plug it in, it will have to be a -2. Good, because it indicates direction as well. This is just the length. And then we're gonna say, well, we need it to be negative because this is concave down. So this would be 4 times -2 is a -8. What else do we need to figure out? The vertex. From the focus, if this is x dominant, will the x have to do any work? No, they're bossing the y around. So the x is going to stay as what? 3. And so that's x minus 3. And how do I get k? So if this is at 3, 3, to move up from that, I'm going to have to do what to it? Add my length of 2. So 3 plus 2 would be 5. So h is 3, k is 5, so it's x minus 3 quantity squared equals -8. Y what? Y minus 5. That's it. Not too bad, right? Okay, let's do one more. Let's have a focus of -1, 1, and a directrix of x equals -5. What is the first question you ask yourself? X or Y dominant. So what do you look at?
The directrix.
I look at the directrix, and because that's telling me who has to do the work here. And we're also thinking about this. A Y dominant parabola has a directrix that is a vertical line, which is an x equals. So if this is telling me I have a vertical directrix, that means that this thing is going to be Y dominant. So what's my formula for a Y dominant? Standard form.
Y minus k all squared equals
X minus h. So with our vertex, kind of mixing this up a little bit, if this is Y dominant, which variable or which value is going to stay the same? The Y, right? So if my focus is -1, 1, what do I know the Y variable in my vertex is going to be? It's also going to be 1. What is the distance between -5 and -1? That's a distance of 4. What does that distance represent? P or 4P? Or excuse me, 2P, sorry. It's 2P. So 2P is a length of -5 plus, or excuse me, -5 minus a -1. So that's -5 plus 1, which absolute value that's a length of 4. So P is 2. So how do I get from my focus of a -1 to my vertex? If it helps you to draw a quick sketch, do it. It just takes a second. This is -1, 1. There's my focus. My directrix is all the way over here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5. Where does the focus have to be? Inside the bowl. So if this is a length of 4, halfway between there I have my vertex. So should this open to the left or to the right? It should open to the right. So P is going to be a +2. So this is the length, and then we apply the sign for direction. So P is a positive 2. And what would I need to do if this is my focus? How do I get to this vertex? So we're going to the left, so it's -1, subtract 2. So that would be what? -3. So when I plug everything in, what do we have to be really careful about?
That would make sure we plug in the x's for the x and the y.
Right, that we plug in the x coordinate with the x, and we plug the y coordinate in with the y. It's reverse here. The y's are showing up first, and then the x's. We don't just follow the order that they're written. The h goes with the x, and the k goes with the y. So, and we know it opens to the right, so P is positive. So what would my standard form be? Y minus what? Y minus 1 squared equals 8, because it's 4 times 2, and 2 is positive because I'm opening to the right. X minus a -3, which would make it become x plus 3. That's it. Are you guys with me on this? So as far as work is concerned, you pick. If you want to try to like make little equations with the k plus p, k minus p equals, you would need to show that. Or you would need to show that you did a sketch and found p and determined it that way. If all I see on your homework papers are just the answers, do you think that's going to be worth any points? No, we need to practice showing how we come up with our answers. Okay? All right, so I want you guys to do the second assignment in the packet. It's called Parabolas as Conics. You're doing 1 through 20. One thing on the packet, do you guys see with number, with these match the formulas to the correct graph? Now that you've seen all the answers. This A is the same as saying what for us? We've been referring to it as P. Okay, same thing. All right. Okay, so work on that. Next time